Mark Jackson. You guys you thought that the ESPN layoffs was over. And I'm here to tell you that it's not over. While Kendrick Perkins and Malika continues to stay on the roster for ESPN, ESPN is 100% updating and revamping. I've never seen ESPN in the news this much before in my life. I've never seen ESPN in the news this much before in my entire life. We got Stephen A. Smith that's recruiting Shannon Sharp. Jalen Rose, Jeff Van Gundy, and now Mark Jackson is fired. Malika Andrews is still there. Mark Smith, I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly. And Kendrick Perkins. Pat McAfee just got a bag. Every single day, it seems like that there's news coming out. Now, Jeremy H. says, who the F is Mark Jackson? Mark Jackson, okay, let me bring y'all back into the front of the congregation. Mark Jackson is the original architect and coach that put together Stephen Curry. Not put together, but coach Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and kind of sort of put them together with the Golden State Warriors. He was the original coach. Mark Jackson is believed to have been blackballed by the NBA from coaching ever again because he was religious. And one of the things that he used to do was he used to come in and have prayer and make people go to church with him and all of this other type of stuff, right? And so essentially, Mark Jackson was fired from the Golden State Warriors and he was replaced by Steve Kerr, who eventually led the Golden State Warriors to a championship. But Mark Jackson is also an ESPN analyst that calls a lot of the games and he has a lot of the good takes. Mama, where is that man? He says a lot of the different things that he narrates on NBA 2K. He's a great analyst. He's a basketball genius. But a lot of people believe that he was blackballed from ever coaching again in the NBA. But he is a phenomenal analyst. An absolutely phenomenal analyst. He's the person that kind of gave the foundation for who you see Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is today. And he was recently just fired. And when ESPN said that the firings was not over, they were not fucking kidding. All right? Mark Jackson is now laid off from ESPN. Mama, there goes that man. Hand down, man down. Y'all saying it in the chat. Y'all saying it in the chat. All right? But let's get into it. All right? So Mark Jackson had nothing but love because he's a Christian. He's largely a really good Christian. Nothing but love for ESPN in a statement hours after the network laid him off on Monday. The former NBA player and coach had been in his second stint at ESPN and this past season had been a part of the broadcast team that called the NBA Finals. He wrote, he was let go and had unexpectedly been told by ESPN that his services were no longer needed. Although shocked and dismayed with the suddenness of it all, I would like to thank ESPN and all of the staff at the NBA ESPN crew for allowing me to be a part of the NBA part of the organization for the past 15 years. Let me see if I can just go ahead. This is what he said on Twitter. Now it's called X. I don't know. He said, this morning, I was informed that my services was no longer needed at ESPN. Although shocked and dismayed, this is the statement that he gave. Although shocked and dismayed with the suddenness of it all, I would like to thank ESPN and all of the staff of the ESPN crew for allowing me to be a part of the organization for the past 15 plus years. That's a long time to be with an organization, 15 years. I would also like to thank NBA fans watching at home and in the arenas throughout the league for all of the support. To the NBA, a heartfelt thank you for allowing a kid to continue to accomplish his dreams. It has been an honor to sit beside two legends in the business who are like brothers to me, Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy, who was also fired, and learn so much from them. Lisa Salters is a GOAT, hopefully not a throat goat, is a GOAT and like a sister to me, and I'm so proud of the work she continues to do. To the best producer in the world and my friend, Tim Corrigan, I give the utmost gratitude and thanks for always inspiring and supporting me. To all of the staff and crew that may have never been seen on camera, please know that you are always seen by me and so greatly appreciated. Finally, I wish greater measures of success to the new ESPN team. May they continue to elevate this game that has given me a home and a life. I leave ESPN with nothing but gratitude, while all while knowing that my highest praise goes to God. Through it all, He has always sustained me, and His grace allows me to know that there are greater blessings ahead. I look forward to what He has in store next. Blessings, Mark J., short for Mark Jackson. Hand down, man down. So, let's see. Breen will remain, but it's expected that he'll be joined by Doris Burke. Let's go into that. All right. Mark Jackson is out at ESPN, and the Post has learned Jackson's joined Jeff Van Gundy and being laid off after the two had been Mike Breen's co-analysts on the NBA Finals. They are expected to be replaced by Doris Burke and Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is going to be replacing these people. And it's not about the sports. I see you, Sid. Rock out with me for a minute. This is not about sports. This is always coming back down to the money. So what are we saying here when we having this conversation? Why is this important? It's not about the sports and it's not about Mark Jackson. It's about the company, Disney, the parent company, is bleeding money. If I am you, and I'm not telling you what to do and I'm not a financial analyst, I'm just giving you my opinion of what it is that I see from a business perspective. And everything that is happening in the weeds is ultimately leading me up to a conclusion as to whether or not I think that Disney owns ESPN, whether or not Disney is a smart financial investment. Last week on Friday, I broke down why I don't believe that Apple will ever bail Disney out in buying out the company, right? I talked about the whole idea that Apple and the way that they run the company has no use for a lot of the different ways in which Disney runs the company. So, for example, I don't think that Apple wants to be in the business of the Disney World and the Disneylands in Florida and the different competition that DeSantis is going on over there and over in California and then over in Tokyo. It's too many things and too much debt that does not align with how it is that Apple runs the company. And so when I see something like this happen, in which ESPN is trying to pivot, they're trying to cut costs while at the same time maintain a level of relevancy while bleeding money. And then you have Stephen A. Smith that is petitioning for them to get Shannon Sharp. They just gave Pat McAfee the bag. They fired almost all of their staff. They got rid of the good analysts. And one of the reasons why I think that this is happening is because I think that they're trying to cut costs. I think it's much cheaper for them to bring in people at a much more valuable rate, still having the name and the prowess, while getting rid of the people that have tenure that make a lot of money. I think it's cheaper to keep Malika Andrews and Kendrick Perkins and get rid of fucking Jalen Rose and Jeff Van Gundy. I think it's cheaper to be able to promote Doris Burke and then bring in a brand new, recently fired Doc Rivers than it is to keep a Jeff Van Gundy and a Mark Jackson. You are seeing the most epic fall of ESPN and Disney that you have ever seen in your entire life, and it is going to be a bloodbath. It is going over the next 3, 4, 5 years. I wouldn't be surprised, and you heard it here first, I wouldn't be surprised if Disney actually spun off ESPN as its own entity. It doesn't even fit into the portfolio in the category. They have this asset that they don't even know what to do with. They have an asset that they don't even know what to do with. It doesn't fit into the Disney Plus ecosystem. The ESPN app is starting to become long in tooth and that it really needs an update because nobody really checks the ESPN app for news as much as they check for scores. Now that you have gambling on a large scale in most states, most people just check the scores along with the odds. They're overpaying. They then have these egregious contracts with all of these different teams, or these different leagues, such as the NBA, that they have to pay out, right? And Disney is bleeding to the tune of about $800 million just in this quarter alone, and they saddled with a bunch of debt. I believe that it's in the best interest for Disney to become a smaller company, spin off the debt by saddling all of these other different entities with it, and then try to make themselves more attractive as a target for takeover or for a buyout. That's what it comes down to. Do I care about whether or not Mark Jackson is fired? Not really. I think that he was a really good analyst, but I don't believe that has any relevance whatsoever. I think that Mark Jackson is just a victim of circumstance and bad management that's happening over at ESPN and then ultimately Disney. It comes back to the money, in my opinion. It always comes back down to the money. And I don't believe that a Shannon Sharpe is going to change what is happening over at ESPN. As a matter of fact, I don't think that Shannon Sharpe wants to come into a culture that's this toxic. There's no way that Shannon Sharpe, in my opinion, comes into a culture that's toxic. If Shannon Sharpe ever even joins ESPN, I'll be the first one to come back to the front of the congregation and say that I was wrong. But I doubt it. Apple is not buying Disney. Shannon Sharpe is not going over to ESPN. I think that it's smart. If they were smart, then they would spin off a lot of these different entities that is a part of that is a part of Disney that's not making money. And I think that you're going to continue to see people get laid off. And there's people that's getting laid off right now that you don't even hear about. You just hear about Mark Jackson because he's one of the most visible people that's a part of the company. So that's my take on that. I'm curious as to what you guys think. Let me know inside of the comments what you think. Do you think that this was a justified firing? Do you think it always comes back down to the business? Or do you think that ESPN is going to survive, they're going to be successful, and they're going to be able to pivot and become great, not just in the ratings, but their ability to be able to generate income? Let me know in the chat. I want to know about what it is that you guys think.